There's a peculiar tragedy in the way the human mind operates. It desperately seeks answers, certainty, control. It stitches together fragments of information, beliefs, and assumptions, and calls this patchwork truth. But if you truly pause, you might begin to notice something unsettling. Most of what you believe to be true was never truly questioned. It was absorbed, inherited, handed down by culture, by family, by society, and accepted as reality. And yet, beneath this illusion of knowing, a quiet whisper echoes, "Do you truly know anything at all?" Socrates, one of the wisest men to ever walk this earth, spent his life not teaching answers, but exposing ignorance. His radical realization was simple, and yet profoundly unsettling. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. In a world obsessed with being right, with having conclusions, with clinging to opinions like armor, Socrates stood as a mirror reflecting the terrifying and liberating truth that certainty is an illusion, that knowledge, as the mind defines it, is always incomplete, always provisional. Because the map is never the territory, the words are never the thing itself. We name a tree, but the word tree is not the living mystery of its roots, its leaves, its quiet communion with the wind. We call something good or bad, but these are just concepts, lenses through which the mind tries to simplify what is far too vast to fit in language. And yet, we cling. We cling because not knowing feels like groundlessness. It feels like standing at the edge of an abyss. But what if that abyss is not emptiness, but freedom? What if, in releasing the compulsive need to know, you actually open the door to something far deeper, far more alive than knowledge could ever provide? Because maybe wisdom does not come from answers. Maybe it begins where the answers end. Look closely at the way the mind operates. It's addicted, not just to thoughts, but to certainty. It fears the unknown. It despises the ambiguity of existence, so it builds stories, endless stories. It tells you who you are. It defines others. It labels life itself. This is right. This is wrong. I am this. I am not that. The mind constructs a house made of concepts and then lives trapped inside it, mistaking the walls for reality. But those walls are paper thin. They are fragile, and deep down, we know it. This is why we become so defensive when someone challenges our beliefs, because when a belief collapses, it feels like we collapse. But were you ever that belief to begin with? Socrates understood something that the modern world desperately tries to forget. That intellectual arrogance is the greatest blindness. That pretending to know is the fastest way to disconnect from truth. In his dialogues, Socrates rarely offered answers. Instead, he asked questions, endless questions, relentless, uncomfortable, beautiful questions. And as his questions peeled away the layers of false certainty, those who once believed themselves wise were left humbled to exposed, yet somehow more alive. Because in the nakedness of not knowing, something extraordinary happens. A new kind of awareness emerges, an awareness that is not made of facts, but of presence, not built on concepts, but on direct experience. You begin to notice how often the mind mistakes the menu for the meal, the description for the thing itself, the map for the territory. You realize that the deepest truths cannot be spoken, that the sacred, the real, the alive exists beyond the reach of words, and in that realization, the grip of the mind begins to loosen. There is a strange peace that comes from surrendering the need to know, a peace that doesn't come from certainty, but from intimacy with the mystery, the same mystery that births the stars, moves the ocean, and beats your heart right now, without you having to understand how. When the mind finally surrenders, even for a moment, something cracks open. Beneath the noise of thought, beneath the compulsive need to define, categorize, control, there is a stillness, a vast open space, silent, aware, and utterly free. It is here that wisdom is born, not the kind of wisdom that fills books, but the kind that lives in your bones, a wisdom that doesn't arrive through answers, but through presence. Socrates wasn't teaching ignorance. He was pointing to a kind of intelligence that exists beyond the intellect, an intelligence of the heart, an intelligence of direct seeing, a knowing that arises precisely because it embraces not knowing. This is the great paradox. The wisest among us are those who have let go of the need to be wise. They do not pretend. They do not cling to rigid identities. They do not wear the heavy armor of certainty. Instead, they walk naked into the mystery of life. They become students of everything, apprentices of the unknown, humble observers of the infinite. When you no longer need to pretend that you know, the world opens itself to you in ways you could never imagine. You begin to notice things you never noticed before, the subtle glow of sunlight through leaves, the way a child laughs without reason, the softness in a stranger's eyes. Life stops being a problem to be solved and becomes an experience to be lived. In this space, fear loses its grip, because fear, at its root, is the fear of the unknown. But if you are no longer resisting the unknown, what is left to be afraid of? When the illusion of certainty dissolves, so too does the illusion of separation. You realize that you were never an isolated fragment, but part of an intricate, living web of existence. You are not the thinker, you are not the thought. You are the aware space in which all thoughts arise and dissolve, a silence so intimate, so profound, that it cannot be described, only lived. This is the gateway, the portal, the threshold between a life bound by the mind and a life liberated by mystery. And as you cross it, you don't become someone greater. You simply become less someone. Less a collection of labels, less a prisoner of identity, less a seeker lost in endless concepts, and more. Infinitely more. A direct participant in the miracle of being. And so, as the dust settles, what remains is not an answer, not a solution, not a conclusion neatly tied with ribbons of certainty. What remains is a presence, a quiet recognition that this life, this existence, was never meant to be figured out. It was meant to be felt, to be touched, tasted, breathed in its raw, untamed, unknowable beauty. All your life, you were told to gather knowledge, to accumulate facts, to construct an identity. But the irony, the beautiful, tragic, liberating irony, is that everything you ever sought through knowing was waiting for you on the other side of not knowing. There, in the spaciousness where the mind no longer clings, you discover something that no philosophy, no scripture, no belief can give you, a direct intimacy with life itself. The trees do not ask who you are. The wind does not demand credentials. The stars do not care about your theories. They simply invite you to be fully, nakedly, honestly, to breathe with them, to dance in the great unfolding mystery, to participate in the sacred rhythm of existence without needing to explain it. The wise, those like Socrates, have always known that the greatest gift isn't in knowing, but in wonder. Wonder keeps the heart soft. It keeps the eyes open. It keeps the soul humble. And humility is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength, the courage to stand before the infinite and bow, to whisper, "I do not know." And in that whisper, the universe responds, with a silence more eloquent than 1,000 answers. It is in that silence that you finally meet yourself, not the self made of concepts, but the self that simply is. No name, no form, no boundary, just awareness, just presence, just life looking back at itself through your eyes. Socrates once said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom, and the beginning of knowing yourself is the end of pretending you already do." So let go. Let the mind soften. Let the questions float like clouds across the sky, and trust that what is real, what is true, what is timeless, has never been hidden from you. It was simply waiting for the moment you stopped trying to grasp it and allowed yourself to be it.